A werewolf romance written by Lilian Gerard. Prologue. I was 9 years old the day my uncle sold me like livestock at the market. 9 years old when I learned that love could be measured in coin, that a child's life could be traded for a pouch heavy enough to make a greedy man smile. I remember the sound, the metallic clink as it exchanged hands, and I remember thinking, with the strange clarity that comes with absolute devastation, that this was the sound of my world ending. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how I went from property to power, from the girl nobody wanted to the queen they never saw coming. But let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment everything ended, to my 9th birthday. Chapter 1. Tuesday. The world ended for me on a Tuesday. I know that's a strange thing to remember, what day of the week it was, but when you're 9 years old and your entire existence is being ripped apart, your mind latches onto the smallest, most meaningless details. Tuesday. It was raining. The kind of cold, relentless rain that turns dirt to mud and makes everything smell like rust and decay. There had been no cake that morning, no song, no acknowledgement at all that 9 years ago I had entered this world loved and wanted. My mother had died bringing me into it, and apparently that made my birthday something shameful, a reminder of loss rather than a celebration of life. I'd stopped expecting anything years ago. After Mama died and Uncle Ferris took me in, birthdays became just another day of chores and silence. But somehow, some childish part of me had hoped, had thought maybe this year would be different. I was in the corner of our tiny hut mending one of Uncle's torn shirts when I heard the knock at the door. My fingers had been bleeding from the needle pricks. I was never careful enough, never fast enough, but as I sat there in the gray light, something strange happened. The pain began to fade. Not completely, but enough that I could flex my hands without wincing. I stared at my fingers, confused. The tiny wounds were still there, but they looked older, like they'd been healing for days instead of minutes. I shook my head. Probably just my imagination. Probably just... Uncle's head snapped up from where he'd been hunched over his accounts. His eyes, small, pale things that always reminded me of a rat's, gleamed with something I didn't recognize, something that made my stomach twist. "Stay there," he told me, pointing a gnarled finger in my direction. "Don't move. Don't speak." I nodded, drawing my knees up to my chest, making myself smaller. I was good at that, at disappearing, at being so quiet and still that people forgot I was there. The familiar scene continues with the Alpha's entrance and evaluation. The man who entered our home was like nothing I'd ever seen before. He was an Alpha. I could tell from the way he moved, the way his presence seemed to fill the entire cramped space of our hut, making the walls feel like they were closing in. His clothes were fine, deep burgundy wool with silver fastenings that caught the weak light from our fire. His boots were polished, his hands were clean, but his eyes... Gods, his eyes were the coldest thing I'd ever seen. Colder than the winter river that had taken my cousin 2 years back. Colder than the earth over Mama's grave. And they were looking at me. Not the way people usually looked at me, with pity or dismissal or mild disgust at the dirt smudge on my cheek. No, he looked at me the way Uncle looked at the chickens before slaughter. Like I was something to be evaluated, assessed for value. "Is this the one?" His voice was smooth, cultured, entirely void of warmth. "Yes, my lord." Uncle practically groveled, his voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before. Obsequious, eager. 9 years old today, as promised. Omega designation confirmed at birth. Healthy, obedient. No living family to come looking. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. no living family. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. "Stand up, girl." I looked at Uncle, confused, frightened. He jerked his chin at me impatiently, and I scrambled to my feet, my mending falling forgotten to the floor. The Alpha circled me slowly. I felt his gaze traveling over me like cold hands, and I wanted to scrub my skin, to hide, to disappear into the walls. "Skinny," he observed. "She'll fill out, my lord," Uncle said quickly. "And she's a hard worker. Tireless, never complains. How do I know she won't run?" Uncle laughed, actually laughed, and the sound made something inside me crack. "Where would she go?" "She's got nothing, no one. She knows her place." The Alpha stopped in front of me. Up close, I could see the gray threading through his dark hair, the hard set of his jaw. "Look at me, child." I forced my eyes up, even though everything in me screamed to look away, to submit, to show the deference that had been beaten into me since I could remember. His lip curled slightly. "Adequate," he said, as if I were a piece of furniture he was considering purchasing. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. The sound of it hitting the table was obscenely loud in the small space. Heavy. Final. Uncle's eyes widened, and I saw his throat work as he swallowed. His hands trembled as he reached for the pouch, as he loosened the strings and looked inside. The way his face transformed, the naked greed, the triumph, told me everything I needed to know. "No," I whispered. The word came out so soft I barely heard it myself, but somehow, in that moment of terrible silence, it seemed to echo. "No?" The Alpha's eyebrow arched. "Uncle Ferris, please!" My voice cracked, and suddenly I was moving, rushing forward, grabbing onto Uncle's threadbare sleeve. "Please, I'll be better. I'll work harder. I won't eat as much. Please don't." He shook me off like I was a particularly persistent fly. "Enough, Maya. You should be grateful. Do you know what kind of opportunity this is? A position in Lord Aldric's household? You'll have a roof over your head, 3 meals a day. You'll never have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. But I don't want to go. This is my home." "This is my home," he corrected, his voice hard now. All pretense of familial affection dropped. "You've been nothing but a burden since the day your mother died birthing you. At least now you'll finally be worth something." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, tears burning hot trails down my cheeks. "Please," I tried one more time, my voice breaking. "Please don't send me away. I'm sorry I cost you so much. I'm sorry I'm an Omega. I'm sorry Mama died. Please, I'll be good, I promise. I'll be so good. We're wasting time." Lord Aldric's voice cut through my desperate pleas like a knife. "Get her things. Whatever she needs. She doesn't have things, my lord." Uncle was already pocketing the pouch, his movements quick, furtive, as if afraid I might somehow steal it back. "Just the clothes on her back. Oh, and this." He crossed the room to the small chest where I kept my few possessions. Mama's comb with the broken teeth, a smooth river stone I'd found, and the locket. Always the locket. "No!" I lunged forward, but Lord Aldric caught my arm, his grip iron hard. Uncle pulled out the locket, the silver oval that Mama had worn every day of her life, the one thing that proved she had existed, that she had loved me. The only thing I had left of her. "It's worthless," Uncle said, turning it over in his hands, "but she's attached to it. Screams bloody murder if anyone tries to take it. Probably best if she has something to remember." "Give it to the girl." Lord Aldric's tone suggested this was the first and last kindness I could expect from him. Uncle tossed it to me, and I caught it with my free hand, clutching it to my chest like it was the only thing anchoring me to the world. In a way, I suppose it was. Time to go. Lord Aldric began pulling me toward the door. That's when I realized, truly realized what was happening. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a punishment that would end when I'd learned my lesson. This was permanent. This was goodbye. Uncle Ferris. I dug my heels in, my free hand shooting out to grab the doorframe. My fingers wrapped around the rough wood, splinters biting into my skin. Uncle Ferris, please. I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please don't make me go. For just a second, one single, heartbreaking second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Regret. The ghost of the man who had once been my mother's brother, who had held me when I was a baby, who had taught me to skip stones across the river. Then it was gone. "Be good, Maya," he said, and turned away. That's when Lord Aldric pried my fingers from the doorframe, one by one, methodical and cold. His hand closed around my arm, not to guide, not to support, but to possess. To claim ownership of something newly purchased. As he dragged me out into the pouring rain, I didn't cry. I was past crying. I just watched as the only home I'd ever known grew smaller and smaller through the sheets of water, until finally it disappeared entirely into the gray. I was 9 years old, and I had been sold. Chapter 2, The House of Chains. The journey to Blackwater Estate took 2 days. 2 days during which I learned that childhood, as I had known it, was over. 2 days during which Lord Aldric didn't speak a single word to me, except to tell me to hurry up or be quiet. 2 days during which I clutched Mama's locket so tightly that it left an imprint in my palm, a small silver miracle that I prayed would somehow save me. It didn't. Blackwater Estate loomed out of the mist like something from the dark fairy tales the village elders used to tell, to scare children into obedience. All gray stone and iron gates, towers that disappeared into the low clouds, windows like empty eyes watching our approach. It was beautiful in the way that dangerous things are beautiful, in the way that a blade is beautiful right before it cuts you. A severe-looking woman met us at the servants' entrance. Her hair was pulled back so tightly I wondered if her face hurt, and her lips were pressed into a thin line of permanent disapproval. "This is the new girl?" She looked me up and down with open disdain. "She's filthy." "She's 9, Lord Aldric said flatly. "Put her to work in the kitchens. Make sure she understands the rules." Then he walked away, disappearing into the grand house through a different door. The door for people, I realized dimly. Not the door for property. The woman, Mistress Vale, I would learn, grabbed my shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Listen carefully, Omega, because I'll only say this once. You will rise before dawn. You will work until you are dismissed. You will speak only when spoken to. You will not look the family in the eye. You will not enter the main house unless specifically ordered. You will not steal, you will not be lazy, and you will not cause trouble. Do you understand?" I nodded, mute. "Do you understand?" She shook me with each word. "Yes, mistress," I managed to whisper. "Better. You'll sleep in the servants' quarters with the other low-ranked Omegas. Your designation makes you the lowest of the low here, girl. The only thing keeping you from the streets is your willingness to work. Remember that." She pulled me through a maze of corridors, all of them rough stone, undecorated, cold, until we reached a long, narrow room lined with cots. It smelled like unwashed bodies and despair. "That one's yours." She pointed to a cot in the corner, the thin mattress stained and lumpy. "Supper is in an hour. Don't be late." Then she left, and I was alone. I sat on the cot slowly, my whole body trembling. The locket was still in my hand, and I brought it up to my face, pressing it against my cheek like I used to press my face into Mama's neck when I was small enough for her to hold me. "I miss you," I whispered to the empty room. "Mama, I miss you so much. Please come back. Please tell me what to do." But Mama was dead and buried, and I was here, and there was no one coming to save me. So I opened the locket, the way I'd done 1,000 times before, and looked at the 2 tiny portraits inside. Mama on one side, beautiful and smiling, her eyes the same green as mine, and on the other side, a symbol, an intricate crest that I'd traced with my fingers so many times I could draw it in my sleep. Mama had never told me what it meant. She'd just said it was important, that it meant we came from somewhere special. Looking at it now, in this cold place that was supposed to be my future, it just looked like a pretty design. Nothing more. I closed the locket and tucked it inside my dress, against my heart, where no one could see it. Chapter 3: Becoming Invisible. That night I learned what my new life would be. The other servants, girls mostly, a few boys, all omegas or low-ranked betas, regarded me with a mixture of pity and resentment. Another mouth to feed, another body to compete with for the warmest spot by the fire, the largest portion of bread. They didn't speak to me, and I didn't try to speak to them. I lay on my cot, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the estate settling around me, and I made myself a promise. I would survive this. I would endure. And someday, somehow I would be free. I didn't know then how long someday would take. Didn't know that freedom isn't something you wait for, but something you have to seize with both hands, even when they're shaking. I didn't know a lot of things, but I would learn. The first year at Blackwater Estate taught me that there are infinite varieties of cruelty, and not all of them leave visible scars. I learned that invisibility was a survival skill, that the less you were noticed, the less you were hurt. I became a shadow, moving through the kitchens and corridors like a ghost, my head down, my voice silent. They stopped using my name after the first month. I became Girl or Omega or You There. And slowly, terrifyingly, I began to forget what it felt like to be Maya, to be a person instead of a function. I scrubbed floors until my hands bled. I hauled water until my back screamed. I served meals I wasn't allowed to eat and cleaned rooms I would never be permitted to inhabit as anything other than a servant. But strange things kept happening. Once I found a kitchen cat with a broken leg, mewling in pain behind the flour barrels. Without thinking, I picked it up, cradling it against my chest. The cat should have clawed me. It was half wild, vicious when cornered. Instead, it went still, quiet. Its yellow eyes locked on mine, and I felt something pass between us. Understanding, maybe? Or recognition. When I set it down 10 minutes later, it was purring, and when it walked away, it wasn't limping anymore. I told myself I'd imagined it, that the leg hadn't really been broken, that I'd just calmed a frightened animal. But deep down, in a place I didn't dare examine, I knew better. There were other incidents. A serving girl who'd been beaten by one of the lords, her face swollen and purple. I'd brushed past her in the hallway, our shoulders touching for just a moment. She'd gasped, not in pain, but in surprise. The next day, her bruises had faded to yellow, healing at twice the normal speed. A child in the village where I'd been sent to fetch eggs, crying with a fever. I'd touched his forehead to check his temperature, and felt that same strange warmth flowing from my palm. His mother said the fever broke within the hour. Each time I pushed the memories away, refused to think about them, because acknowledging what they might mean felt dangerous, felt like hoping for something I couldn't afford to hope for. So I kept my head down, kept scrubbing, kept surviving, and tried not to notice that I was becoming something other than invisible. I was becoming impossible to kill. Chapter 4. The Boy with Sad Eyes. The Aldric family barely acknowledged my existence. Lord Aldric I saw rarely, always from a distance, always with that same cold assessment in his eyes. His wife, Lady Morgana, was worse. She looked through me as if I were made of glass. As if I literally didn't exist. They had 2 sons. The elder, Darius, was being groomed to inherit the estate. He was handsome in the way that predators are handsome, all sharp edges and dangerous charm. He liked to make the Omega servants cry, liked to watch them flinch and cower. I learned quickly to disappear when he was around. The younger son, Creed, was different. I first saw him in the gardens during my 2nd month at the estate. I'd been sent to collect herbs for the kitchen, and I'd gotten turned around in the maze of paths, ending up in a section I'd never seen before. He was sitting on a stone bench beneath a willow tree, a book open in his lap. He looked about 13 or 14, with dark hair that fell into his eyes, and a gentle face that seemed out of place in this harsh household. I froze, knowing I wasn't supposed to be there, knowing I should back away before he noticed me and reported me to Mistress Vale. But then he looked up, and our eyes met. "Hello," he said. The word hit me like a physical thing. I blinked, stunned. No one in this house said hello to me. No one acknowledged me with anything resembling courtesy. I'm sorry, my lord," I stammered, dropping into an awkward curtsy. "I got lost." "I'll go." "You're the new girl," he interrupted, closing his book. "The one they put in the kitchens. Maya, right?" Hearing my name, my actual name, from someone's lips after months of being called girl or worse, made my throat tight. My vision blurred, and I realized with horror that I was about to cry in front of the Lord's son. "Yes, my lord." I kept my head down, blinking furiously. "Just Creed," he said, and when I dared to glance up, he was smiling. It was a sad smile, I noticed, like he'd forgotten how, and was trying to remember. "You don't have to call me my lord when no one else is around. We're practically the same age, aren't we? How old are you?" 10, I caught myself. 10, Creed. "I'm 14. See? Not so different." But we were different. He was the son of the man who had bought me. I was property. The distance between us was infinite, uncrossable. And yet he was still sitting there, looking at me like I was a person. Like my answer mattered. Something in my chest, something that had been crushed and dormant since the day I was sold, stirred weakly back to life. "You should go before someone sees you," I said quietly, but my voice had less conviction than I'd intended. "If they think you were talking to me, I'll be punished." Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe. Or shame. "That's not right," he said softly. "You're just a child. You should be playing, learning, not—" He gestured vaguely toward the main house. "Not whatever they have you doing." I didn't know what to say to that. The idea that my situation was wrong, that I deserved something different, was so foreign that I couldn't quite grasp it. "I really should go," I repeated, but I didn't move. Couldn't move. Because for the first time in months, someone was looking at me like I mattered. And I was so starved for that recognition that I would risk punishment just to feel it for a few moments longer. Creed seemed to understand. He didn't push me to leave. Instead, he said, "I come here most afternoons. To read." It's the only place I can think without—" He stopped himself, as if realizing he was revealing too much. "If you ever get lost in the gardens again, you'd be welcome to sit for a while. If you wanted." My heart hammered. This was dangerous. So dangerous. But also, it felt like a lifeline. "Thank you," I whispered. Then, before I could lose my nerve, I turned and fled back through the gardens, my heart pounding, Mama's locket thumping against my chest with each step. I told myself I wouldn't see him again, that he would forget about the strange Omega girl in the gardens. But I was wrong. Chapter 5. The library creed found me again 2 weeks later. I was in my refuge, a small alcove in the library where I'd discovered I could hide for a few precious minutes during my rare breaks. The library was supposed to be off-limits to servants, but there was a servant's entrance that no one seemed to use anymore, and I'd found that if I was careful, I could slip in and out without being noticed. I couldn't read. No one had ever taught me. But I loved being surrounded by the books. Loved running my fingers over the leather spines. Loved the smell of paper and ink. Sometimes I would open a book at random and look at the letters, imagining what stories they told, what worlds they described. I wondered if I'd find you here. I jumped, the book I'd been holding falling from my hands. Creed stood in the doorway, that same gentle expression on his face. "I'm sorry," I gasped, scrambling to my feet. "I know I'm not supposed to be here. I was just—" "It's okay," he said, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "I'm not going to tell anyone. Actually, I've been looking for you. I wanted to apologize." "Apologize?" I stared at him, confused. For what? For what my family has done to you. For what my father did. Buying you like— He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "It's not right. You deserve better." Tears burned in my eyes, sudden and hot. I blinked them back furiously. I'd trained myself not to cry, not to show weakness, but his kindness was undoing something in me, cracking the shell I'd built around my heart. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why are you being nice to me?" He looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because you're a person, Maya. Because you deserve to be treated with kindness. Because—" He hesitated. "Because I know what it's like to be invisible in your own home. To feel like you don't matter." I wanted to argue that his situation and mine were nothing alike. He was the Lord's son, after all, privileged and protected. But there was something in his eyes that stopped me. A loneliness that I recognized because I saw it in my own reflection every morning. "My mother died when I was young," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not my stepmother, Lady Morgana, but my real mother. She was kind, gentle. Everything this house isn't. She used to tell me that the measure of a person isn't their rank or their designation. It's how they treat those who have no power." He looked directly at me, and I saw something vulnerable in his gaze. I think she'd want me to be kind to you, to see you. The way he said, "see you," like it was a gift he was offering, like visibility was something precious, made something in my chest crack wide open. "I see you too," I said softly, surprising myself. "In the garden that day. You looked sad, like you're wearing a mask for everyone else, but when you're alone, you can finally take it off." His eyes widened. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, "No one's ever said that to me before." Maybe no one was looking. Something shifted in his expression. A wall coming down. A decision being made. "Can you read?" he asked suddenly. I shook my head, embarrassed. "Would you like to learn?" I stared at him, my heart suddenly pounding. Yes, but I can't. I have work, and if anyone found out, no one will find out, he said firmly. I'll teach you. Here, during your breaks, we'll be careful. Why would you do that for me? Because everyone deserves to read, he said simply. And because... He paused, a faint color rising in his cheeks. Because I've been so lonely in this house for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have a friend. If you'll let me, Maya. If you'll be my friend. Friend. The word felt foreign and precious. Something I'd stopped believing I could have. Yes, I breathed. Yes, I'll be your friend. His smile transformed his whole face, made him look younger, less burdened. Okay then, he said, picking up the book I'd dropped. Let's start with the alphabet. Chapter 6. The Awakening. And so it began. Over the next 3 years, Creed became my salvation. We met in secret, in the library, in hidden corners of the garden, anywhere we could steal a few moments away from the watchful eyes of the household. He taught me to read, starting with simple words and gradually building to full sentences, paragraphs, stories. The first time I read an entire page by myself, I cried. Creed pretended not to notice, but he smiled, and it was the warmest, proudest smile I'd ever seen. You're brilliant, he told me that day, after I'd finished the page. Maya, you're genuinely brilliant. Has anyone ever told you that? I shook my head, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Well, you are. You learn faster than anyone I've ever known. You ask questions that make me think differently about things I thought I understood. He reached out, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so tender, so carefully respectful, that it made my breath catch. You're extraordinary. No one had ever called me extraordinary. No one had ever called me anything but burdensome, worthless, in the way. No one had ever touched me with gentleness. I found myself leaning into his hand before I could stop myself, starved for kindness the way I'd once been starved for food. He didn't pull away. His thumb brushed my cheek, so softly I almost didn't feel it, and his eyes held mine. You matter, Maya, he whispered. I need you to know that. You matter so much. I wanted to tell him that he mattered too, that these stolen moments in the library had become the only thing keeping me alive, that I thought about him during the long hours of scrubbing and hauling, replaying our conversations, hoarding each smile like a dragon hoards gold. But I was 12 years old and broken, and he was 16 and noble, and the words stuck in my throat. So instead, I just nodded, and hoped he understood. He taught me other things too. History, mathematics, the names of stars. He told me stories about the old royal families, about the Luna Queens who had once ruled with wisdom and compassion, about a time when Omegas were revered for their gifts of empathy and healing, not scorned as weak. What happened to them? I asked once during one of our lessons. I was 13 now, no longer the terrified child who'd arrived at the estate, but still small, still learning to believe I could be more than invisible. The Luna Queens? His face darkened. The last one was murdered 20 years ago. There was a coup. Several powerful alpha houses rose up, claiming that Omega rule had made the kingdom soft, vulnerable. They killed Queen Seraphine and hunted down anyone loyal to her. It's said she had a daughter, but no one knows what happened to her. She would be about your age now if she lived. That's sad, I said softly, tracing the drawing of Queen Seraphine in the history book. She was beautiful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Something about her made my chest ache in a way I couldn't explain. It is, Creed agreed. The kingdom has never been the same. Without the Luna Queens, without that balance of alpha strength and omega wisdom, we've become harsh, cruel. Places like this. He gestured around the library, but I knew he meant the estate, the whole system that had allowed me to be bought and sold. Places like this wouldn't exist if the Luna Queens still ruled. I thought about that often, in the dark hours before dawn, when I lay on my cot trying to ignore the cold. I imagined a world where omegas were valued, where children couldn't be sold, where someone like me could be more than a shadow. It seemed like a fairy tale. Too beautiful to be real. But Creed made me believe that maybe, someday, things could change. He also made me believe in something else. Something I'd thought died the day my uncle sold me. He made me believe that I mattered. One afternoon, when I was 13, something happened that changed everything. We were in the garden, our usual spot beneath the willow tree. Creed had brought a book on healing herbs, and we were studying together when a bird fell from the branches above us. It hit the ground with a sickening thud. Its wing bent at an impossible angle. It made a sound, a high, keening cry that shot straight through my heart. "Oh no," Creed breathed, kneeling beside it. "Its wing is broken. It won't survive like this. We should..." He stopped, his jaw tightening. "We should probably put it out of its misery." "No." The word came out fierce, certain. I knelt beside him and reached for the bird. "Maya, don't. It might..." But the bird didn't peck at me, didn't try to escape. The moment my fingers touched its feathers, it went still, quiet, and I felt it. Not just the bird's pain, though I felt that too, a sharp, bright agony that made me gasp. But something deeper. The bird's life force, its desperate, flickering will to survive. I closed my eyes and let that warmth I'd been suppressing for years finally flow free. It poured out of me like light, like water, like something essential that had been dammed up too long. I felt the bird's bones knitting, its muscles repairing, its fear dissolving into calm trust. When I opened my eyes, the bird was standing in my palm, its wing whole and perfect. It chirped once, a sound of pure joy, then flew away, disappearing into the canopy. I looked at Creed. His face was white with shock. "What?" His voice cracked. "Maya, what did you just do?" "I don't know," I whispered, staring at my hands. They were glowing faintly. Or maybe that was just my imagination. It's been happening for a while. Small things. A cat with a broken leg, bruises that heal too fast. I thought I was imagining it, but... "You have the Luna gift." Creed's voice was filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. "Maya, only those with royal blood can heal like that. Only the Luna line. That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm just... You're not nobody." He grabbed my shoulders, his eyes intense. "Listen to me. That locket you always wear, the crest on it, I need to research it. Because if you have healing powers, if you can do what you just did, Maya, you might be someone very important. Or very dangerous to know," I said quietly. He didn't argue. We both knew it was true. Chapter 7. The Truth in Silver. I clutched my locket. I always wore it hidden beneath my dress, and felt something long dormant stir in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the memory of what it felt like to be loved. Creed noticed the gesture. "You touch that a lot," he observed gently. "The locket. Is it from your mother?" "Yes," I said softly. "It's all I have left of her. Can I see it?" I hesitated, then slowly pulled it out from beneath my dress. Creed had been kind to me for years now, had risked punishment to teach me, to see me. If I couldn't trust him, I couldn't trust anyone. I opened the locket carefully, showing him the 2 portraits inside. His eyes widened. "Your mother was beautiful," he breathed. "And that crest." He leaned closer, studying the intricate symbol on the opposite side. "I've seen this before. In the history books, but I can't remember where." My heart skipped. "Really?" "Let me look it up. It might tell us something about your family, about where you came from." Before I could respond, we heard footsteps in the corridor. We both froze. "You have to go," Creed whispered urgently, closing the locket and pressing it back into my hands. "If they find us together, I know." I was already moving toward the servants' entrance. "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," he promised, but tomorrow never came. Not the way we planned, anyway. Chapter 8. The Brothers' Rage. It was Darius who found us. I was 13 now, no longer the scrawny child who had arrived at Blackwater Estate, but I was still small, still easily overlooked, still an Omega servant with no rights, no voice, no protection. Darius was 18, about to be officially named heir. He'd grown more vicious with each passing year, his cruelty toward the servants becoming legendary. I'd managed to avoid him mostly, but I always felt his eyes on me sometimes, lingering, assessing. It made my skin crawl. That day, I was in the library with Creed. We'd grown careless over the years, too comfortable in our hidden friendship. We were laughing, actually laughing, over something in the book we were reading when the door slammed open. Darius stood there, his face twisted with rage. "So this is where you've been disappearing to, brother," he snarled. "Slumming with the Omega trash." I scrambled to my feet, terror flooding my veins. Creed stood too, moving slightly in front of me, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Darius. "It's not what you think," Creed said, his voice steady despite the fear I could see in his eyes. "We were just what?" "Reading?" Darius laughed, cruel and mocking. But there was something else beneath it. Something that looked almost like hurt. Teaching the little slave to read. How touching. How noble. While the rest of us are preparing for the responsibilities of running this estate, you're playing tutor to property. "She's not property," Creed said quietly, dangerously. "She's a person. And if you can't see that, then you're exactly what's wrong with this family." Darius's face went red. "What did you say to me?" "You heard me. Father raised us to be strong, but he forgot to teach us to be good. Mother, our real mother, she understood the difference. But you were too young when she died. You don't remember what she tried to teach us." For a moment something flickered across Darius's face. Pain, perhaps. The ghost of a memory. But it was quickly buried under rage. "Don't you dare speak about her!" Darius hissed. "You who spent all your time with her while I was being trained to lead. You who she loved more than—" He cut himself off, his jaw clenching. So, that was it. Jealousy. The wound of a child who felt second best, festering for years until it turned into cruelty. But understanding his pain didn't make him less dangerous. His eyes fixed on me, traveling over my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear into the floor. Then his gaze dropped to my chest, where Mama's locket had slipped free from my dress in my panic. "What's that?" he demanded. "Nothing," I said quickly, trying to tuck it away. "It's just—" He was across the room in 3 strides. His hand shot out and grabbed the locket, yanking it hard enough that the chain bit into my neck before snapping. "No!" I lunged for it, but Creed caught me, held me back. Give it back, Creed said, his voice hard now. It's hers. It was her mother's. Give it back, Darius. Her mother's? Darius examined the locket, turning it over in his hands. What would an Omega slave's mother be doing with silver this fine? Did she steal it? My mother didn't steal anything. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. It was hers. It's all I have left of her. Please, please give it back. Darius's eyes glittered with malice. He held the locket up, dangling it just out of my reach. You want it? Beg for it, Omega. On your knees. Darius, stop this, Creed said dangerously. Or what, little brother? You'll tell Father? Go ahead. Tell him how you've been wasting your time with this worthless... He broke off abruptly, his eyes fixed on the open locket in his hand. The blood drained from his face. What the... He brought the locket closer, his hands suddenly shaking. This crest. This is... He looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear in Darius Aldric's eyes. Real, bone-deep terror. Chapter 9. The Name That Changes Everything. Where did you get this? His voice was barely a whisper. I told you, I said, confused by his reaction. It was my mother's. What was your mother's name? I don't know her real name. Uncle Ferris never talked about her. I just called her Mama. Your uncle? Where did he live? Millbrook. In the Southern Territories. Why? What does it matter? Darius's face had gone from white to red. His hand closed around the locket, and for a horrible moment I thought he was going to crush it. You should have destroyed this, he said so quietly I almost didn't hear him. Father should have destroyed this the day he bought you. Darius, what are you talking about? Creed demanded. What's wrong? It's just a locket. It's not just a locket. Darius's voice cracked, and now I could see it. The fear beneath the rage, the panic of someone whose entire world was being upended. It's God's. We have to tell Father. We have to. He turned and ran from the room, still clutching my locket. I started after him, but Creed grabbed my arm. Wait. Something's very wrong here. He has my locket. It's the only thing I have of her. I know. But Maya, the way he reacted. Creed's face was pale. That crest. I told you I'd seen it before. I think it might be from one of the old royal families. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. That doesn't make sense. My mother was just... She was just my mother. She was nobody important. Then why did Darius look so afraid? We found out an hour later. Chapter 10. The Dungeon. They came for me at dawn. Not Mistress Vale with her sharp tongue and sharper slaps. Not one of the other servants. Guards. Actual guards, with the Aldrich crest on their chests and swords at their sides. They dragged me from my cot, ignoring my terrified questions, ignoring the way I fought and pleaded. They hauled me through the estate like a criminal. Down, down, down into the depths of the house where I'd never been allowed. To the dungeons. The cell they threw me in was small and dark and smelled like death. The door clanged shut, and I was alone in the blackness, my heart hammering, my mind racing. What had I done? What had I done? I curled into a ball in the corner, shaking, trying to understand. The locket. It had something to do with the locket. But what? What could a simple piece of jewelry mean that would lead to this? Hours passed. Or maybe it was minutes. Time lost all meaning in the dark. Then I heard footsteps. Maya? The whisper was so quiet I thought I'd imagined it. Creed? I scrambled to the door, pressing my face against the bars. "Creed, what's happening? Why am I here?" His face emerged from the shadows, and in the torchlight I could see tear tracks on his cheeks. "Oh, Maya," he breathed. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "For what? I don't understand." "Your mother..." His voice cracked. "Maya, your mother wasn't just some peasant woman from Millbrook. The crest on your locket, I found it in the history books. I showed it to the old healer, Brennan, the one who's been here since before I was born." "What did he say?" Creed's hands gripped the bars, his knuckles white. "That crest is the personal seal of Queen Seraphine, the last Luna Queen, the one who was murdered 20 years ago." The world tilted. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not possible." My mother she was just my mother. She lived in a tiny house with my uncle. She wasn't a queen. She was her daughter," Creed said, and his voice was full of grief and wonder and terror all at once. "Maya, your mother was the lost princess, the one everyone thought died in the coup. She survived. She went into hiding, changed her name, lived as a common Omega. And then she had you." The words weren't making sense. Couldn't make sense. "But that would mean you're the heir," Creed finished. "You're the rightful queen. The Luna bloodline didn't die out. It's been here, in this house, scrubbing floors and hauling water and being treated like property for the past 4 years." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The cell was spinning, and I pressed my back against the cold stone wall to keep from falling. "No," I said again, more forcefully this time. "No, that's insane. If my mother was a princess, why would she live like we did? Why would my uncle sell me? Why would—" "Because he didn't know," Creed interrupted. "Or maybe he did and thought he could profit from it by selling you where no one would ever find you. But my father knew. Gods, Maya. My father knew exactly what he was buying when he paid for you. That's why he was so specific about your age, your designation, your location. He wasn't looking for a servant. He was looking for the lost heir." The pieces were falling into place now, each one more horrifying than the last. "He was hiding me," I whispered. "All this time, he wasn't just using me. He was making sure I could never claim what was mine. Making sure I stayed invisible, powerless." "Yes," Creed's voice was anguished. "The Aldric family was one of the houses that supported the coup. If anyone discovered the true heir was alive, if you claimed your throne, we would lose everything. Our lands, our title, our wealth, all of it was built on the blood of your family." I pressed my hands to my face, trying to process this. My mother. My beautiful, gentle mother who had sung to me and held me and loved me. She had been a princess. Had been hunted. Had given up everything to keep me safe, and I had never known. Why didn't she tell me? My voice broke on the words. Why didn't she prepare me? Why didn't she? "She was protecting you," Creed said gently. "As long as you didn't know, you couldn't accidentally reveal yourself. You were just a normal Omega child. Unremarkable. Safe. Safe." I almost laughed. There was nothing safe about the life I'd lived. Nothing safe about being sold, about being worked until I collapsed, about being treated as less than human. But alive. I was alive. And if my mother's enemies had known who I really was... "What's going to happen to me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Creed's silence was confirmation enough. "They're going to kill you," he finally said, and his voice was thick with tears. "Tomorrow night. My father wants it done quietly, with no questions. They'll say you tried to escape and fell from the tower. An unfortunate accident. No one will investigate the death of an Omega servant. He reached through the bars, his hand finding mine in the darkness. His fingers were warm, trembling. "I can't lose you," he whispered, and there was something raw in his voice, something he'd never dared say before. "Maya, you're the only good thing in this God's forsaken place. The only person who's ever seen me as something other than the disappointing second son. His voice broke. "I love you. I've loved you since you were 10 years old, and brave enough to tell me I looked sad. I love you, and I can't watch them kill you." The words hung in the air between us, precious and impossible. "Creed," my own voice was shaking. "I love you too. But you're the Lord's son, and I'm—" "You're a queen," he said fiercely. "You're the rightful queen, and they stole your throne, and they tried to break you, but you're still here. You're still standing. And I swear to you, on my mother's memory, on everything I am, I will get you out of here. I will help you take back what's yours." "That's treason," I said softly. "Then I choose treason." His hand tightened on mine. "I choose you." Chapter 11. The flight. I should have been terrified, should have been begging him to help me, to save me. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Anger. Pure, white-hot, righteous anger. These people, these cruel, greedy people had murdered my grandmother, had hunted my mother until she had no choice but to hide, to live in poverty, to die young and afraid, had bought me, broken me, tried to erase me from existence. And now they thought they could just kill me and move on? "No," the word came out steady. "Certain. No, I'm not going to let them do this." "Maya, there's nothing you can do. You're locked in a cell. There are guards everywhere. Even if you escaped, where would you go? Everyone who supported the Luna Queens is dead or in hiding. Then I'll find them." I moved closer to the bars, close enough to see Creed's face clearly in the torchlight. "The ones in hiding. They're out there, aren't they? Waiting for a sign that the bloodline survived? It's been 20 years. Most people think the old ways are dead. Even if you found them, even if you convinced them who you are, my father has armies, allies, wealth beyond measure. You're one girl, an untrained, powerless. I'm not powerless." I touched my chest, where the locket should have been, where I could still feel the phantom weight of it. I have the Luna gift. I can heal. I can calm. And I carry the blood of Queen Seraphine. That has to mean something. "It means they'll hunt you," Creed said desperately. "It means every moment you're alive, you're in danger. Maya, please, let me try to help you escape. Tonight. We can get you far away from here. You can change your name, disappear, live a quiet life somewhere they'll never find you." "Like my mother did?" I shook my head. "She spent her whole life running, Creed. She died young and afraid, and she never got to see the world she should have inherited. I won't do that. I won't hide. Then you'll die." "Maybe." I pressed my hand against his through the bars, feeling his warmth, his strength. "But at least I'll die as myself. As Maya, daughter of—" I paused, realizing I didn't even know my mother's real name. "Linnea," Creed supplied softly. "Princess Linnea. She was famous for her healing gifts, for her compassion. They say she could calm the most savage alpha with just a touch, that she could sense pain and fear and bring peace. The common people loved her. Linnea. My mother's name was Linnea, Then I'll die as Maya, daughter of Linnea, granddaughter of Seraphine. And maybe that will be enough to wake something up in this kingdom. To remind people that we were better once. That we could be better again. Creed was crying now, openly, not bothering to hide it. I don't want you to die, he whispered. Then help me escape, I said simply. Please, Creed. I know what I'm asking. I know it means betraying your family, giving up everything. But please, if you love me. I do, he interrupted fiercely. I love you more than I love safety. More than I love comfort. More than I love the idea of who I'm supposed to be. He wiped his eyes, straightening his shoulders. Of course I'll help you. I'll get you out of here tonight. And then we run. Together. Together, I agreed, my heart swelling with something that felt dangerously close to hope. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against the bars, and I did the same. For a moment, we just breathed together, sharing this tiny connection across iron and stone. You're going to be a magnificent queen, he said finally, terrifying and magnificent. I'm going to be a living queen first, I pointed out. Everything else comes after that. Right. Okay. He straightened, his expression hardening into determination. The guards change at midnight. I can get the keys. There's a passage that leads from the dungeons to the old chapel. It hasn't been used in years, but it should still be passable. From there, we can get to the stables, take horses, be miles away before anyone notices you're gone. What about you? When they discover I'm missing, they'll know I helped, but I'll be gone too. We disappear together, Maya, partners in treason. Despite everything, I smiled. Partners in treason. I like the sound of that. Chapter 12. Blood and Starlight. The escape was supposed to be quiet, clean, simple. It was none of those things. Creed got me out of the cell without trouble. The guards were drowsy, inattentive, not expecting any real threat from a locked-up Omega child. We made it through the passage, our footsteps echoing in the narrow stone corridor. The torch Creed carried casting wild shadows on the walls. We were almost to the chapel when we heard the shout behind us. The prisoner is escaping! Sound the alarm. Run! Creed grabbed my hand and we ran. The chapel was a ruin, half collapsed, open to the night sky. We could see stars, thousands of them, cold and distant and beautiful. We didn't stop to admire them. The stables were across an open courtyard. 50 yards. Might as well have been 50 miles. When we get to the horses, take the gray mare, Creed said, breathing hard. She's the fastest. Don't wait for me. Just ride. North toward the Silverwood forest. There are people there who might help. I'm not leaving you. You have to. If they catch you, you die. If they catch me, I'm the Lord's son. They won't kill me. They'll just lock me up for a while. Maya, you have to survive. You're what matters. You're what this is all for. We burst into the stables. The horses whinnied, startled by our sudden entrance and the commotion behind us. Creed moved quickly, expertly, saddling the gray mare with practiced hands. Up! He ordered, and I scrambled onto the horse's back. Remember, north. Don't stop. Don't trust anyone until you're sure. And Maya ? He looked up at me, and in the lamplight, he looked older than his 17 years. Beautiful, and brave, and breaking. I meant what I said in the dungeon. I love you. I'll find you again. I swear it. Even if it takes years, even if I have to cross the entire kingdom, I'll find you. Creed, my voice cracked. I leaned down, and he reached up, and for one perfect, stolen moment our lips met. It wasn't a grand kiss, wasn't practiced or smooth. We were both shaking, both terrified, both tasting salt from tears we didn't have time to cry. But it was real. It was ours. It was goodbye and promise and love all wrapped into one desperate touch. When we pulled apart, his hand lingered on my cheek. "Go," he whispered. "Change the world. Creed, go!" He slapped the horse's flank and she bolted. I looked back once, just once, and saw him standing in the stable doorway, torch in hand, placing himself between me and the guards pouring into the courtyard, buying me time, saving me, loving me enough to let me go. Then the horse carried me into the darkness, and Blackwater Estate disappeared behind me, and I was alone with the stars, and my grief, and my rage. Chapter 13. The Luna rises. I rode until the mare was lathering and stumbling, rode until my legs ached and my hands were raw from gripping the reins, rode until the sky began to lighten in the east, and I knew I had to find shelter or risk being spotted. I found a cave, little more than an overhang really, and led the mare inside. She was shaking with exhaustion and I was in no better shape. I collapsed against the stone wall, my whole body trembling. I was free. I was alone. I was terrified. And I was angry. So angry. I thought about my mother, about how she must have felt running just like this. Scared. Exhausted. Desperate. She'd been pregnant with me. Had she touched her belly and wondered what kind of world she was bringing me into? Had she hoped I would be strong enough to survive what she couldn't? I touched my own chest, where the locket should have been. Darius still had it. My last connection to her. The proof of who I was. For a moment, despair threatened to drown me. What was I doing? I was 13 years old. I had no money, no allies, no proof of my identity. I was exactly what Creed had called me, an untrained Omega girl with nothing but impossible dreams. Then I remembered the way Lord Aldric's face had looked when he bought me, the cold calculation, the satisfaction of believing he'd buried a threat. I remembered Darius's fear when he recognized the crest. I remembered 4 years of being invisible, being beaten down, being told I was worthless. And I felt something stir inside me. Something that had always been there, maybe waiting. Coiled like a spring, compressed by years of cruelty until it was dense and hard and powerful. It started in my chest, a warmth that spread outward, through my arms, my legs, my fingertips. The aches from the ride began to fade. The cuts on my hands from gripping the reins started to close. I gasped, pulling my hands up to stare at them in the growing light. The wounds were healing. Not slowly, not the way wounds normally heal, but quickly, visibly, skin knitting back together before my eyes. "What?" I breathed. The warmth intensified, and suddenly I felt it. Everything. The mare's exhaustion and fear. The small creatures hiding in the rocks around me, watching warily. The trees beyond the cave entrance, their roots deep in the earth, their branches reaching for the sun. I felt connected. To all of it. Like the world was alive and breathing, and I was part of its breath. This was the Luna gift. The power that had made my grandmother a queen, that had made my mother beloved. It hadn't manifested fully before because I'd been suppressed, broken down, taught to be small and powerless. But now that I knew who I was, now that I'd claimed my identity, now that I'd chosen to fight instead of hide, It was waking up, and it was magnificent. I stood slowly, carefully testing this new awareness. I could feel the mare's pain, a strain in her front left leg, exhaustion in every muscle. Without thinking, I placed my hand on her neck. The warmth flowed out of me and into her. Her breathing steadied. The tension left her frame. She turned her head to look at me, and I swear there was recognition in her eyes. Understanding. "We're going to be okay," I told her. Told myself, "We're going to survive this." And then I looked north toward the Silverwood forest, toward the people Creed said might help. "Then we're going to take back what's mine." The mare whickered softly, as if she understood, as if she agreed. I smiled, actually smiled, for the first time since the day my uncle sold me. Let them try to stop me now. Chapter 14, Silverwood. The journey north took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of traveling at night, hiding during the day. 3 weeks of pushing my newly awakened powers to their limits, healing the mare's exhaustion each morning so we could ride again each night. 3 weeks of learning what my body could do when survival depended on it. But it was more than survival that drove me forward. It was purpose. I passed through villages where children with bellows for ribs watched me with hollow eyes. I saw omegas being beaten in the streets, their cries ignored by passers-by who had learned that compassion was weakness. I saw fear and cruelty and despair everywhere I looked. This was what my grandmother's kingdom had become. This was what 20 years of Alpha rule without the balance of Omega wisdom had wrought. In one village, I couldn't help myself. A woman was being whipped in the town square. Some minor offense, some excuse for cruelty. The crowd watched with dead eyes, too afraid or too broken to intervene. I dismounted and walked forward. "Stop," I said quietly. The man with the whip turned, sneering. "And who are you to—" I touched his wrist. Let my power flow. Not to hurt, never to hurt, but to show him. To let him feel what she felt. The pain, the fear, the shame of being reduced to nothing in front of neighbors who once knew your name. He dropped the whip, his face going white. "She's just trying to feed her children," I said softly. "Is that worth this?" I helped the woman up, healing the worst of the wounds on her back. She stared at me with wonder and terror in equal measure. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Nobody yet," I told her. "But someday, I'm going to make sure this never happens again." Word of the incident spread. By the time I reached the Silverwood forest, I was no longer just a runaway servant. I was a story, a rumor, a hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The forest was ancient and dark, its canopy so thick that midday looked like twilight. I dismounted and led the mare forward, following an instinct I didn't quite understand. There was something here. Someone. I could feel them watching. "I know you're there," I called out, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm not here to cause harm. I'm looking for people who remember, who still believe in the old ways." Silence stretched. Then, slowly, figures emerged from the shadows. 10, maybe 12 of them. Betas and omegas mostly, dressed in worn leather and homespun, weapons at their sides. They looked hard, weathered, like people who had been fighting a losing battle for far too long. An older woman stepped forward. She had gray streaking through her dark hair and scars crisscrossing her face, one across her left eye, another along her jaw. A warrior's face, a survivor's face. "Who are you?" she demanded, her hand on the hilt of her sword. This was it. The moment of truth. I took a deep breath, touching my chest where the locket should have been. "My name is Maya," I said clearly, letting my voice carry. "I am the daughter of Princess Linnea, the granddaughter of Queen Seraphine, and I've come to take back my throne." The woman's eyes widened. For a long moment no one moved. No one breathed. Then she dropped to one knee. One by one the others followed, their heads bowed, their fists pressed to their hearts in the old salute. "We've been waiting for you," the woman said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "For 20 years we've been waiting. Welcome home, Your Majesty." Chapter 15, Becoming the Luna. I stood there surrounded by these strangers who were kneeling before me, who were calling me Majesty, who were looking at me like I was their salvation, and I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. The responsibility, the expectation, the sheer impossibility of what I was about to attempt. But I also felt something else. Belonging. "Please stand up," I said gently. "I'm not your queen yet. Right now, I'm just a girl who needs your help. But together," I looked at each of them in turn, "together, maybe we can be something more. Maybe we can change this kingdom. Not with violence, not with more blood, but with truth, with justice, with the reminder that we were better once, and we can be better again." The scarred woman rose, a fierce smile on her face. "Then let's begin, little queen. My name is Commander Lysa, and I served your grandmother before the coup. Let's show them what they tried to bury." They took me to their camp, a hidden settlement deep in the forest, dozens of rough shelters built into the trees and hillsides. There were more people than I'd expected. 50, maybe 60. All of them refugees from the old regime. All of them waiting. That first night, they gathered around the fire to hear my story. I told them everything. Being sold at 9, 4 years of servitude, Creed's kindness, the discovery of who I really was, my escape. When I finished, there was silence. Then an old man with a long white beard stood. "I was your grandmother's healer," he said, his voice cracking. "I delivered your mother the night she was born. And I was there." His face crumpled. "I was there the night of the coup. I tried to save her, your grandmother. But there were too many of them. And she made me flee, made me survive to tell the story, to wait for her bloodline to return." He knelt before me, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. "I never thought I'd live to see this day. But you're here. You're real. Princess Linnea's daughter. The Luna heir." "Show us," someone called from the crowd. "Show us you have the gift." I looked at Commander Lysa. She nodded encouragingly. I stood and walked to the old healer. "What's your name?" I asked gently. "Brennan, Your Majesty." "Just Maya," I corrected. "And you're in pain, Brennan. Your joints, your back, years of running, of sleeping on hard ground, of grief carried in your bones." His eyes widened. "How did you—" I placed my hands on his shoulders and let the warmth flow. Not all of it. I was still learning control. But enough. Enough to ease the worst of his suffering. Enough to let him stand straighter, breathe deeper, remember what it felt like to not hurt. When I stepped back, he was crying again, but this time, in wonder. "She has it," he breathed. "The Luna gift. Just like Queen Seraphine. Just like Princess Linnea." He turned to the crowd. "This is our queen." The camp erupted in cheers. Chapter 16. The Making of a Revolution. And so my real education began. Commander Lisa was a stern teacher, but fair. She'd been one of my grandmother's personal guards, trained in both combat and strategy. She taught me that healing wasn't the only power an Omega Luna could wield. Your grandmother could walk into a room full of hostile alphas and have them eating out of her hand within minutes, Lisa told me during one of our early lessons. It wasn't manipulation. It was understanding. She could feel what they felt, their fears, their anger, their pain, and address it. Meet them where they were. That's what made her unstoppable. She taught me to extend my awareness, to sense the emotions of those around me. It was exhausting at first, like trying to hear 100 conversations at once. But gradually I learned to filter, to focus, to understand the currents of feeling that moved through any group. This is how you'll lead, Lissa said. Not with force, with empathy, with the ability to bring people together instead of tearing them apart. Brennan taught me the history they'd preserved, the names of those who had been loyal to my grandmother, the locations of hidden supporters scattered throughout the kingdom, the old rituals and ceremonies that had bound the Luna Queens to their people. You're not just reclaiming a throne, he explained one evening, his gnarled hands tracing maps by firelight. You're reclaiming a way of life, a philosophy, the understanding that true strength comes from balance, not domination. Others taught me practical skills, how to move through the forest silently, how to identify safe houses and loyal supporters, how to speak with authority, how to inspire, how to lead. But the most important lessons came from the people themselves. I began traveling with small groups to nearby villages, not announcing who I was. That would be too dangerous, but simply helping, healing the sick, calming frightened children, easing the pain of those who had been broken by the harsh new world. Word spread faster than I'd expected. Stories began to circulate, of a young Omega with healing hands, of a girl who spoke with wisdom beyond her years, of someone who had the Luna gift, which hadn't been seen since Queen Seraphine's death. And people began to hope. In one village, an elderly woman grabbed my hand as I was leaving. "Are you her?" she whispered urgently. "Are you the lost princess's daughter? The true heir?" I looked into her eyes and saw desperation there. A lifetime of suffering, waiting for salvation. Would it matter if I was? I asked gently. It would mean everything, she said fiercely. It would mean my granddaughter might grow up in a world where being Omega doesn't mean being worthless. It would mean things could change. I squeezed her hand. Then keep hoping, I told her. Keep believing that change is possible. And when the time comes, be ready. 6 months passed, then a year, then 18 months. I was 15 now, nearly 16. No longer the frightened child who'd escaped Blackwater Estate, but not yet the queen I needed to become. Still learning, still growing, still gathering strength. The movement was growing too. Hundreds of people now, spread across the kingdom. Not an army. I'd been firm about that. We wouldn't win through violence, but a network. A web of supporters waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. And then, on a cold autumn morning 2 years after my escape, Creed found me. Chapter 17. Reunion. I was in a clearing near our main camp, practicing with my powers, trying to extend my awareness further, to sense life beyond the immediate area. It was delicate work, requiring complete focus. That's probably why I didn't sense him approaching. You've gotten better at that. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. He stood at the edge of the clearing, looking worn and travel-stained and more beautiful than I remembered. Taller now. He'd grown in the 2 years since I'd seen him, broader in the shoulders. His face had lost its boyish softness, sharpened into something more angular, more adult. But his eyes were the same, gentle and sad and warm. "Creed," I breathed. For a moment we just stared at each other, 2 years of separation stretching between us like a chasm. So much had changed. So much had happened. Then he smiled, that same slightly sad smile I remembered, and the distance collapsed. I was running before I knew I'd decided to move. He caught me in his arms, lifting me off the ground, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. I didn't care. I wrapped my arms around his neck and buried my face in his shoulder and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for 2 years. Relief, joy, love. The overwhelming gratitude of having him here, alive, safe. "I thought," my voice cracked, "I didn't know if you were okay, if they'd hurt you for helping me. I wanted to find out, but it was too dangerous to go back, and I—" "Shh," he murmured into my hair. "I'm here." "I'm okay. They locked me up for a few months, but I escaped. I've been looking for you ever since." 6 months? I pulled back to look at his face. "It took you 18 months to find me?" "You're good at hiding," he said wryly, "and I had to be careful. My father has people everywhere, watching for any sign of you. I had to take the long way around, follow rumors and whispers." His hand came up to cup my cheek. "But I told you I'd find you, even if it took years." I leaned into his touch, my eyes closing. "I missed you," I whispered. "I missed you too." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "Every day, every moment." When I opened my eyes, he was looking at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Not like he used to look at me, with the careful protectiveness of someone older watching over someone younger. This was different. This was the way someone looks at an equal, at someone they see not just as a friend, but as— "You've changed," he said softly. "You're—" He seemed to struggle for words. "Gods, Maya, you're extraordinary." "I'm still me," I said, suddenly shy. "No." His other hand came up, framing my face. "You were always extraordinary. But now you believe it. I can see it in the way you stand, the way you hold yourself. You're not hiding anymore. I can't afford to hide. Too many people are depending on me." "I know." His eyes searched mine. "Lisa told me everything. About the movement you're building, the people you've helped, the hope you've given them." A slow smile spread across his face. "You're doing it. Actually doing it. Becoming the queen you were meant to be." "I haven't done anything yet," I protested. "I'm still just—" "You're not just anything." His voice was fierce now. "Maya, do you know what they're calling you out there? In the villages? The healing hand. The hidden Luna. The queen who will come. You've given people something they haven't had in 20 years. You've given them hope." I felt tears prickling at my eyes. "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail them?" "You won't." He said it with such certainty, such absolute faith, that I almost believed him. "You're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived being sold as a child. You survived 4 years at Blackwater. You escaped execution and built a revolution from nothing. If anyone can do this, it's you." "Not from nothing," I corrected. "I had help. I had you." Something shifted in his expression, softened. "You'll always have me," he said quietly. For as long as you want me. In whatever way you want me. The air between us suddenly felt charged, electric. Creed, I breathed. I know we're young, he continued, his voice low and intense. I know you have a kingdom to reclaim and a revolution to lead. I know I'm the son of your enemy, that my presence might complicate things. But Maya, his forehead pressed against mine, I've loved you since you were 10 years old, and if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, I do, I interrupted. God's creed, I do. I've thought about you every day, wondered if you were safe, wished you were here. I love you. I've loved you for so long, I can't remember not loving you. Then let me stay, he whispered. Let me fight beside you. Not as the Lord's son, not as anything except myself, just Creed, who sees you, who loves you, who wants to help you change the world. I pulled back just enough to see his face clearly. It's going to be dangerous, I warned. When we make our move, there's a good chance we'll both die. I'd rather die fighting beside you than live 100 years without you. That's incredibly dramatic, I said, but I was smiling. I've had 2 years to rehearse it, he admitted, and then he was smiling too, and suddenly we were both laughing, the tension breaking into something lighter, easier. When the laughter faded, he was still holding my face, still looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. So, he asked, do I get to stay? Try to leave and I'll hunt you down myself, I told him. Is that a royal command? It's a promise. He kissed me then. Not the desperate, terrified kiss of our escape, but something slower, deeper. A kiss that said, I'm here, I found you, I'm not going anywhere. A kiss that tasted like homecoming and hope and the future we were going to build together. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were bright with happiness. Welcome to the revolution, Creed Aldric, I said. Honored to be here, Your Majesty. Don't call me that. Apologies, my queen. Creed. He kissed me again to shut me up, and I decided I could live with the title if it meant this. Chapter 18, The Tipping Point. Creed's arrival changed everything. He brought information, detailed intelligence about the ruling family's strengths and weaknesses, their alliances, their fears. He knew which houses were most vulnerable to pressure, which ones might be swayed to our cause, which ones would fight to the death to protect the status quo. My father is the linchpin, he explained during a war council with Lissa and the other leaders. The Aldric family is one of the most powerful houses that supported the coup. If we can break his hold, expose what he did, reveal that he knowingly bought and imprisoned the true heir, the other families will panic. They'll turn on each other trying to save themselves. Exposing him exposes you, I pointed out. You're his son. People will assume you're complicit. Let them. Creed's jaw was set. I'd rather be judged for the truth than protected by lies. Lissa studied him with her one good eye. You've changed, boy. When you first showed up, I wasn't sure if you were genuine or a spy. But you've got steel in you now. I learned from the best, Creed said, glancing at me. Over the next months, we refined our strategy. We wouldn't attack, wouldn't lay siege, wouldn't give the ruling families any excuse to paint us as violent rebels who needed to be crushed. Instead, we would simply reveal the truth. Walk into the capital city in broad daylight, thousands strong, and show the people who I was. What I could do, what their kingdom could become. It's risky, Brennan warned. If the crowds turn against you, they won't, I said with more confidence than I felt. We've been laying the groundwork for 2 years. The stories have spread. The hope has taken root. They're ready to believe. And if you're wrong? Lissa asked bluntly. Then I die trying, I said simply. But I don't think I'm wrong. I've been among the people. I've felt their pain, their desperation, their hunger for change. They're not going to side with their oppressors when given a real alternative. Creed took my hand under the table, squeezing gently. A silent message. I'm with you, whatever happens. We chose the capital city of Silvermere for the confrontation, the place where my grandmother had been murdered, where the coup had begun, where it would end. We spent weeks preparing, sending messengers to our network of supporters, coordinating the gathering, making sure everyone understood. This was not violence. This was revelation. The night before we left for Silvermere, I couldn't sleep. I stood outside my shelter, looking up at the stars, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Creed found me there. Nervous? He asked, coming to stand beside me. Terrified, I admitted. Good. That means you understand what's at stake. He was quiet for a moment. My grandmother used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. Wise woman. She would have liked you, I think. He turned to face me. Maya, I need to tell you something. Before tomorrow. Before everything changes. My heart clenched. What is it? If this works, if you actually reclaim the throne, become queen, you're going to have to make hard choices. Political alliances, strategic marriages, the kind of decisions that put the kingdom's needs above personal desires. He took a breath. I need you to know that I understand that. I won't hold you to any promises we've made. Won't stand in the way of what's best for your people. Even if that means... Stop, I interrupted. Just stop. Yes, I'm going to be queen. Yes, I'll have to make hard choices. But Creed, I grabbed his face, making him look at me. You're not a hard choice. You're the easiest choice I've ever made. You're the person who saw me when I was nothing, who loved me when I couldn't love myself, who gave up everything to stand beside me. I don't care what political advisors say. I don't care what traditions demand. If I'm queen, then I get to make the rules. And my rule is that I choose you. Always. Maya. Always, I repeated fiercely. Tomorrow we change the world. But you and me? We don't change. We're constant. We're sure. We're forever. Understand? He kissed me instead of answering, and I tasted salt on his lips. Tears or mine, I couldn't tell. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Forever, he agreed, even if it's a very short forever. It won't be, I said. We're going to win. How do you know? Because the alternative is unacceptable. He laughed, a real laugh, bright and surprised. Gods, you're magnificent when you're imperious. Get used to it, I told him. I'm about to become a lot more imperious. Chapter 19. The Queen's March. We entered Silvermere at midday, when the sun was high and bright and impossible to ignore. 3,000 of us walking in orderly columns. Not marching. We weren't an army. Walking. Like ordinary people with every right to be there. We carried no weapons. We sang instead. The old songs that hadn't been heard in 20 years. Songs of unity and healing and hope. Songs that the older citizens remembered from their childhoods, when the Luna Queens ruled and the kingdom was whole. The City Watch didn't know what to do with us. We weren't attacking, weren't threatening. Just walking, singing, filling the streets with our presence. People came out of their homes to watch. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They lined the streets, staring at us with expressions ranging from confusion to wonder, to something that looked dangerously like hope. By the time we reached the palace square, half the city had come out to see. I stood before the grand palace where my grandmother had ruled, where the throne that should have been my mother's sat empty, and I felt the weight of history pressing down on me. This was it. The moment everything changed, or the moment I died trying. Lord Aldric was there, of course. He stood on the palace steps, surrounded by guards, his face pale with recognition and rage. "You," he breathed, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Me," I agreed, my voice carrying across the square. I'd learned to project, to speak with authority, to sound like a queen. "Lord Aldric, it's been 7 years since you bought me. Since you paid 30 pieces of silver for a 9-year-old child and turned her into a slave. Do you remember?" the crowd murmured, shocked. "You were a servant," he blustered. "An orphan. I gave you a home. You gave me chains." My voice rang out, and I felt my power rising, lending strength to my words. "You knew exactly who I was. You knew that you had purchased the granddaughter of Queen Seraphine, the rightful heir to the throne. And you tried to bury that truth, to erase me, because my existence threatened your power." "She's lying," Aldric turned to the crowd. "She's a mad Omega, a delusional child with delusions of... Am I?" I stepped forward, and the crowd parted before me like water. "Then explain this." I raised my hands and let my power flow. It started as a warmth, spreading out from me in waves. Every person it touched gasped. I could feel their pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, and I eased it. Not completely. I wasn't strong enough for that. But enough to remind them what it felt like to not hurt, to not be afraid, to not be alone. This was the Luna gift. This was what my grandmother had possessed, what my mother should have passed on to the kingdom. This was what they had tried to destroy. "The Luna bloodline is not dead," I said, and my voice was full of power and grief and determination. "It survived. Against all odds, through all cruelty, it survived. I am Maya, daughter of Linnea, granddaughter of Seraphine, and I have come home." The square erupted. Some people fell to their knees. Some wept. Some shouted in joy or disbelief. And Lord Aldric pulled a dagger from his belt and lunged. He was fast, desperate, a cornered animal with nothing left to lose. But Creed was faster. He stepped between us, catching Aldric's wrist, twisting until the dagger fell clattering to the stones. The guards moved to intervene, but Commander Lissa's forces were already there, creating a protective circle around me. "It's over, Father," Creed said, and his voice was cold. "Final. She is who she says she is." "And you've lost. Traitor," Aldric spat. "You're my son." "I'm my mother's son," Creed interrupted, "and she would be ashamed of what you've become. What you've done." Aldric's face twisted with rage and something that might have been pain. "I won't bow to an Omega." "I won't. You will." My voice cut through the chaos. Not loud, not shouting, but absolute, commanding. The voice of a queen. I walked forward through the circle of guards until I stood directly before Lord Aldric. He was on his knees now, whether from Creed's hold or his own shock, I couldn't tell. I reached out with my gifts, touching his mind. Not to control. Not to break. Just to show him truth. I showed him my mother, young and terrified, running through the night with me in her womb, Showed him me at 9, crying as he dragged me away from my uncle's hut. Showed him every moment of pain, every indignity, every time I'd been beaten or starved, or treated as less than human. Showed him what he had done. He collapsed completely, shaking, his face ashen. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Gods, I'm sorry." And I believed him, feeling his anguish, his shame, his horror at seeing his actions through my eyes. I believed him. But belief didn't equal forgiveness. "Your sorrow doesn't erase your crimes," I said quietly, but loud enough for the crowd to hear. "It doesn't restore what you stole. But it's a start." I looked around the square, at the hundreds of faces watching. "This is my first decree as your queen. Lord Aldric, you are stripped of your title, your lands, and your authority. You will spend the rest of your life in service to those you harmed, not as a lord, as an equal, learning what it means to be powerless, learning empathy." I turned in a slow circle, addressing everyone. "This is my promise to you," I said, my voice ringing clear. "I will not rule through fear. I will not take vengeance for vengeance's sake, but I will ensure that no child is ever sold again, that no Omega is ever treated as lesser, that the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. This is what the Luna Queen stood for. This is what we will build together." The cheering started then. Slowly at first, people afraid to believe, afraid to hope. Then building, until it was a roar that shook the very stones of the palace. I looked at Creed, standing beside his father, his face filled with pride and love and relief. I looked at Commander Lissa, tears streaming down her scarred face, her fist pressed to her heart in salute. I looked at the crowd, my people, broken and hurting, but finally daring to hope. And I knew this was just the beginning. Chapter 20. Coronation. The coronation happened 3 months later. It took that long to establish a transitional government, to root out the worst of the corruption, to begin the long, painful process of healing. There was resistance. Some of the ruling families refused to acknowledge me, tried to rally forces against me, but most saw which way the wind was blowing. Most chose survival over pride. And the people chose me overwhelmingly. Chose hope over fear. Chose change over the comfortable cruelty they'd known. I stood in the throne room where my grandmother had been murdered, wearing robes of silver and green, the Luna colors. The crown they placed on my head was not the ornate thing my grandmother had worn. That had been destroyed in the coup. This crown was simpler, more beautiful, made by the common people from whatever precious things they could spare. Silver from melted lockets, gems from family heirlooms, copper from coins saved over years. Each piece carried a story, a sacrifice, a hope. As the high priest, old Brennan, who had delivered my mother and had lived to see me crowned, settled it on my brow, I felt the weight of those stories settle with it. "May you rule with wisdom," he intoned. "May you lead with compassion. May you remember always that a crown is not power. It is responsibility." "I will," I promised. The court erupted in cheers, but I barely heard them. Because Creed was kneeling before me, his eyes bright with unshed tears, and in his hands he held something I'd thought lost forever. My mother's locket. "I couldn't let you be crowned without it," he said softly, opening the clasp. Brennan fixed the chain. He fastened it around my neck, his fingers gentle, and when the silver settled against my heart, I felt complete, whole. I touched his face, not caring that the entire court was watching. "Thank you," I whispered. "Forever," he reminded me. "Forever," I agreed. That night, after the formal ceremonies were done and the court had dispersed, Creed found me in the palace gardens. I was standing beside a newly planted willow tree, a memorial to those we'd lost, and a promise of growth to come. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing with exaggerated formality. "Don't," I said, turning to face him. "Not you. Never you." "What should I call you, then?" "How about my name?" He smiled, coming closer. "Maya, then. How does it feel? Being queen?" "Terrifying. Overwhelming. Like I'm going to make 1,000 mistakes and let everyone down." "So, normal, then?" I laughed despite myself. "Yes. Normal. Good." He took my hands. "Because you're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be human. Real. That's what will make you great." "I hope you're right." "I'm always right," he said, and then yelped when I smacked his arm. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Maya," he said finally, "there's something I need to ask you." My heart skipped. "What?" He dropped to one knee, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. "I know we're young," he said. "I know you just became queen, and there are probably dozens of political reasons this is a terrible idea. But I also know that I've loved you since you were 10 years old. That you're the strongest, bravest, most extraordinary person I've ever met. That every time I look at you, I see home." He pulled out a simple ring, copper, I noticed. The same metal the common people had used for my crown. "I'm not asking as a lord's son," he continued. "I'm not offering political alliance or strategic advantage. I'm just asking as myself, as Creed, who loves you, who wants to stand beside you as you change the world, who wants forever to be more than just a promise." Tears were streaming down my face now. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." He slipped the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit, and stood, pulling me into his arms. We kissed under the stars, and it felt like every moment of pain and fear and struggle had been leading to this, to us, to this perfect, impossible future we were going to build together. "The council is going to have opinions," I said when we finally broke apart. "Let them." He grinned. "You're the queen." "What are they going to do? Overthrow you?" "Don't even joke about that." "Too soon?" "Way too soon." He laughed and kissed me again, and for that moment I wasn't a queen or a revolutionary or the lost heir. I was just Maya, a girl in love, standing in a garden under stars that had watched my grandmother rule and my mother run, and now watched me begin again. It was enough. It was everything. Chapter 21. The first year. The first year of my reign was the hardest. Dismantling a system built on oppression turned out to be more complicated than simply declaring it wrong. There were entrenched interests, economic dependencies, entire regions whose wealth was built on the exploitation I'd sworn to end. Some changes were immediate. I banned the sale of children within the first week, with punishments severe enough to make anyone think twice. I established protections for omegas, legal rights, access to education, freedom of movement without sponsorship from an alpha. Other changes took time. Redistributing the lands seized from families who'd participated in the coup, establishing schools open to all designations, training a new generation of leaders who understood that strength came from cooperation, not domination. There were assassination attempts, 3 in the first 6 months alone. Each time, my Luna gift saved me. I could sense the murderer's intent before they struck, feel their fear and desperation and misplaced loyalty. I didn't execute them. Imprisonment, yes. Rehabilitation, where possible. But not death. I refused to become what I'd fought against. "You're too merciful," Commander Lissa warned after the 3rd attempt. "Eventually, mercy will be seen as weakness." "Then let them think I'm weak," I said. "I'd rather be weak and right than strong and wrong." She shook her head but smiled. "Your grandmother said the same thing once. Drove me mad then, too." Creed was my anchor through all of it. Officially, he was my chief advisor. Unofficially, though the entire kingdom knew, he was my partner in every sense of the word. We married quietly 6 months after my coronation, in a small ceremony attended only by those closest to us. I wore my mother's locket. He wore a copper band matching my ring. Brennan officiated, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Your mother would be so proud," he told me afterward. "Both your mothers." The kingdom was scandalized that I'd married the traitor's son. But they got over it when they saw how we worked together, how Creed's strategic mind complemented my empathic gifts, how we balanced each other, his practicality tempering my idealism, my compassion softening his harder edges. We were stronger together than either of us could have been alone. That was the point, I realized. That was what my grandmother had understood, what the Luna Queens had always known. Balance. Cooperation. The understanding that no one person, no matter how powerful, could do everything alone. Chapter 22. The Council of Houses. 18 months into my reign, I called the first Council of Houses since my grandmother's death. Representatives from every major family, including those who had supported the coup, gathered in the throne room. The tension was palpable. Many of them still didn't accept my authority, still saw me as an upstart Omega who'd gotten lucky. I let them murmur and posture and position themselves. Then I stood. "I know what you think of me," I said, my voice carrying through the chamber. "Some of you think I'm too young, too inexperienced, too weak because of my designation. You're waiting for me to fail, waiting for an opportunity to reclaim what you think you lost." The murmuring stopped. "But here's what you need to understand," I continued. "This isn't a coup. This isn't a power grab. This is a restoration. I'm not taking something from you. I'm returning something you stole, not just from my family, but from every person in this kingdom who has suffered under your rule." I walked down from the dais, moving among them. I could feel their emotions: fear, resentment, grudging respect, and in some cases, genuine shame. "I'm not interested in vengeance," I said. "I'm interested in justice. In building a kingdom where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them, where Omega, Beta, and Alpha work together instead of against each other, where children can grow up safe and fed and educated, regardless of who their parents were." I stopped before Lord Marquis of House Thornwood, one of the most vocal opponents of my rule. "You lost 2 sons in the coup," I said quietly, "fighting for my grandmother. I know you blame her for their deaths. Blame me by extension." His face was carved from stone. "She should have abdicated, should have given the Alphas what they wanted. My sons would still be alive. Your sons were murdered by the same men who sit in this room," I said, and felt the shock ripple through the chamber. "Lord Ravencroft's forces, Lord Blackmore's. They killed your sons because your family refused to betray my grandmother. And then they convinced you it was her fault. I reached out with my gift, letting him feel what I felt. The truth of that day, the betrayal, the senseless violence. When I pulled back, there were tears on his weathered cheeks. "I'm sorry," I said, "for your loss, for the lies you've been living with, for all of it. But it's time to stop letting the past poison the future. Your sons died believing in something better. Honor them by helping me build it." He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he knelt. One by one, others followed. Not all of them. There were still holdouts, still those who would never accept me. But enough to matter. When the council ended, Creed found me in the small study I'd claimed as my personal space. "That was either brilliant or incredibly reckless," he said, handing me a cup of tea. "Both?" I suggested. "Probably." He sat beside me. "You know some of them will never truly accept you. Will spend years looking for ways to undermine you. I know." I sipped the tea, chamomile, my favorite. "But I don't need them to love me. I just need them to understand that the old ways are gone, that we're building something new, and they can either be part of it or be left behind." Very regal. "I've been practicing." He smiled and kissed my temple. "How are you really? I know you put on a brave face for the council, but—" "Exhausted," I admitted, leaning into him. "Overwhelmed. Sometimes I wake up and can't believe any of this is real, that I'm actually here, doing this, responsible for millions of people's lives." "You're doing well," he said softly. "Better than anyone could have expected, better than you give yourself credit for." "I made 3 policy mistakes this week alone. The grain distribution in the southern territories is a mess. There's still resistance in the border regions. The treasury is struggling. Maya," he turned me to face him, "you're 21 years old. You've been queen for 18 months. You're not going to solve everything overnight. The important thing is that you're trying, that you care, that you're willing to learn from your mistakes." I wanted to argue, to list all the ways I was failing, but the look in his eyes stopped me. "I love you," I said instead. "I love you too." He pulled me closer. "Now stop being queen for 5 minutes and just be my wife." So I did. I let the weight of the crown fall away, let myself be just Maya. And for those precious moments, everything was simple. Chapter 23, The Reckoning. 2 years into my reign, Darius came to the palace. I hadn't seen him since the day of my revelation in the square. He'd fled when his father was arrested, disappeared into the countryside. There had been reports, sightings, rumors, but nothing concrete. Now here he was, standing in my throne room under guard, looking gaunt and hollow-eyed. "Why are you here?" I asked. "To face judgment," he said quietly, "for what I did to you. For my part in my father's crimes." I studied him. With my gifts I could feel his emotions, genuine remorse, bone-deep shame, and something else. Exhaustion. The exhaustion of carrying guilt for too long. "Tell me," I said. "What do you think you deserve?" "Death." He said it simply, matter-of-factly. I knew what my father had done. "I helped keep you imprisoned. I took your locket, the only thing you had of your mother, and I gloried in the power it gave me over you. I deserve to die for that." "That's certainly one option," I agreed. "But it's also the easy way out." His head snapped up. "You want absolution," I continued. "You want to pay your debt and be done with it. Death would be convenient for you, quick, final. No more guilt, no more shame, no more responsibility." "Your Majesty," I'm not finished. I stood, walking down from the dais to stand before him. You hurt me, Darius. Badly. You took pleasure in my suffering. And part of me, the part that's still that terrified 9-year-old girl, wants to make you suffer the way I suffered. I let him feel that. The rage, the pain, the trauma that still woke me up some nights, gasping and afraid. He flinched but didn't look away. But I'm not that girl anymore, I said, and killing you, or even imprisoning you, doesn't undo what was done. It doesn't heal anyone. It just perpetuates the cycle of pain. Then what? His voice cracked. What do you want from me? I want you to live, I said. I want you to spend every day of your life working to undo the harm your family caused. I want you to use your privilege, your education, your name. Yes, even your name, to help rebuild what was broken. I want you to become better than you were, to prove that change is possible, that redemption is real. Tears were streaming down his face now. I don't deserve... No, you don't, I interrupted. None of us deserve the chances we get. But we get them anyway. What matters is what we do with them. I reached out and lifted his chin, forcing him to meet my eyes. You have a choice, Darius Aldric. You can take the easy way, death, punishment, the end of responsibility. Or you can take the hard way, life, service, the daily work of becoming someone your mother could be proud of. What's it going to be? He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he knelt. I choose the hard way, he whispered. Teach me. Please, teach me how to be better. I will, I promised. But first, I held out my hand. I need something from you. He reached into his coat, confused, and pulled out a familiar silver locket. I've been carrying it since that day, he said hoarsely. Couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Couldn't bring myself to look at it either. The reminder of what I'd done, who I'd hurt. I took it gently, opened it. Mama's face smiled up at me, unchanged, eternal. Thank you, I said softly, for keeping it safe. Even if you didn't mean to. I don't understand you, he said. I don't understand how you can be this kind. After everything. It's not kindness, I told him. It's pragmatism. Hate would destroy me. Vengeance would make me into what I fought against. This, I gestured between us, this is the only way forward. For both of us. He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. Report to Commander Lissa tomorrow, I said. She'll assign you to work in the rehabilitation programs in the eastern provinces. Hard labor, long hours, no special treatment because of your name. You'll be living among the people your family hurt, helping them rebuild. Can you handle that? Yes, Your Majesty. Good. And Darius? I waited until he looked up. Your mother, your real mother, she would want this for you. The chance to be better. Don't waste it. I won't, he promised. After he left, Creed emerged from the side chamber where he'd been listening. That was either the most foolish or the most brilliant thing you've done as queen, he said. You keep saying that, I pointed out. You keep doing things that make me say it. He smiled. But for what it's worth, I think my brother needed to hear that. Needed to know that forgiveness was possible, that he wasn't beyond redemption. No one is, I said. That's the point. That's what my grandmother understood. What my mother tried to teach by example. We're all capable of both terrible cruelty and extraordinary kindness. The system we build should encourage the latter, not reward the former. Speaking of systems, Creed pulled out a stack of papers. The new education reforms are ready for your review. And the Agricultural Council wants to meet about the drought in the Western Territories, and there's a border dispute that needs... Later, I said, taking the papers and setting them aside. Right now, I need to do something more important. More important than running a kingdom? Much more important. I led him to the gardens, to the willow tree we'd planted, to the memorial that had grown into something more, a symbol of hope, of new beginnings. I opened the locket and looked at my mother's face one more time. Then I closed it and fastened it around my neck, where it belonged. She would be proud of you, Creed said softly. I hope so. I leaned back against him, his arms coming around me. I hope they both would be. My mother and my grandmother. I hope they can see what we're building, what we're becoming. They can, he said with certainty. And they are. We stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the city beyond the palace walls, children were playing. Markets were closing. Families were gathering for dinner. The kingdom was healing. Slowly, imperfectly, with setbacks and struggles and hard-fought progress. But healing. And I was part of that. Not separate, not above. Part of it. Queen Maya. Luna of Silvermere. Daughter of Linnea. Granddaughter of Seraphine. But also just Maya. A girl who had been sold and broken and told she was worthless, who had refused to believe it, who had fought and loved and survived and built something beautiful from the ashes of her pain. That was my true power. Not the healing gift, not the royal blood, but the choice, made every single day, to be better than my worst moments, to believe in the possibility of change, to see the humanity in everyone, even those who had hurt me. That was what being Luna meant, and I would spend the rest of my life proving it. Epilogue, 5 years later. 5 years have passed since my coronation. I am 21 years old. No, wait. I'm 26 now. Sometimes I still think of myself as that terrified 13-year-old who escaped into the night. But I'm not her anymore. Haven't been for years. The kingdom is healing. Not healed. That would be too simple, too neat. But healing. Making progress. Moving forward. The education reforms have taken root. There are schools in every province now, open to all designations. I visit them when I can, watching Omega children learn to read, seeing the wonder in their eyes when they realize the world is bigger than what they've been told. The economic reforms have been harder. Redistributing wealth never pleases those who have it. But slowly, painfully, we're building an economy that doesn't depend on exploitation, that values labor fairly, that gives everyone a chance to rise. There are still problems. The border territories are restless. Some of the old families still plot and scheme. There's a drought in the west that's testing all our resources. Trade disputes with neighboring kingdoms. 100 small crises that make up the daily work of rule. But there are victories, too. Last month, I received a letter from a village in the south. A group of Omega women had pooled their resources and opened a healing center, using the Luna techniques I'd been teaching. They were helping their community, earning respect, building something of their own. "You've changed our lives," they wrote. "Our daughters will grow up free. Thank you." I cried when I read it. Happy tears, proud tears. Creed found me with the letter clutched in my hands, mascara running down my face, probably looking ridiculous. "Good news?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "The best news," I said, showing him. He read it and smiled that gentle smile I love. "See? You're doing it. Actually changing the world." "We're doing it," I corrected. "I couldn't do any of this without you." "I know. he said, completely serious. Then he grinned when I swatted him. But you're the one they look to. You're the one they trust. You're their queen. Their queen. It still feels surreal sometimes. We have a daughter now. Born 3 years ago, with Creed's dark hair and my green eyes and a temperament that suggests she inherited both our stubbornness. We named her Linnea, after my mother. She has the Luna gift. I can feel it in her, that same warmth, that same empathic sensitivity. She cries when others cry, laughs when others laugh. At 3 years old, she already has more compassion in her tiny body than most adults manage in a lifetime. She will be queen someday, but not for a long time, God's willing. For now, she's just a child, playing in the gardens, learning to read, living the childhood I never had. That alone makes everything worth it. Today is the anniversary of my coronation. 5 years. They're planning celebrations, parades, festivals, the whole grand spectacle. But before all that, I slip away to the memorial garden, to the statue of the little girl clutching her locket. Commander Lissa is already there. She's older now, moving slower, but still sharp. Still my most trusted advisor. "Morning, Your Majesty," she says. "Morning, Lissa." I stand beside her, looking at the statue. "Do you ever think about that day? When I walked into your camp and announced I was the lost heir?" She laughs. "I thought you were either insane or the bravest person I'd ever met. And now?" "Both," she says. "Definitely both." We stand in comfortable silence for a moment. "She would be proud," Lissa says quietly. "Your grandmother. I served her for 20 years, and I never saw her happier than when she was helping her people, when she was making a real difference. You have that same joy, that same purpose." "I inherited it from her," I say, "along with the throne and the responsibilities and the constant anxiety." "That too," Lissa agrees. "Being a good ruler means never being certain you're doing it right. The moment you stop questioning yourself is the moment you become a tyrant." "Comforting," I say dryly. "I'm old. I don't have to be comforting anymore." I laugh, and it feels good. Easy. Natural. Brennan joins us, moving slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. He's ancient now, well past 80. But his mind is still sharp, and his loyalty is absolute. "The ceremony starts in an hour," he says. "The people are gathering. They want to see their queen." "Let them wait a few more minutes," I say. "I need to do something first." I open the locket, my mother's locket, which I wear every day, and look at the portraits inside. Mama on one side, the royal crest on the other. Then I do something I've never done before. I carefully remove both portraits. Beneath them there's a tiny space, just enough for 2 more. From my pocket I pull out miniature paintings I commissioned months ago. One of Creed, one of Linnea. I place them in the locket, next to my mother's portrait. Past and present. What was and what is. When I close it, I feel complete. Whole. "Ready?" Creed appears, as if summoned by my thoughts. Linnea is on his shoulders, giggling, her tiny hands tangled in his hair. "Mama!" she shouts, reaching for me. "Crown Day!" Papa says there's cake. "There is definitely cake," I confirm, taking her from Creed and settling her on my hip. "But first we have to smile and wave at a lot of people." "I good at waving," she demonstrates enthusiastically. "The best," Creed agrees, kissing her forehead. Then he looks at me. "You good?" "I'm good," I say, and I mean it. We walk together toward the palace, toward the crowds, toward the celebration. Lisa and Brennan follow behind, along with the other advisors and guards and officials who make up my court. But for a moment it's just us, just our family. Walking through gardens where willows grow and children play and hope is real. I am Maya. I was sold at 9 years old for 30 pieces of silver. I was told I was worthless, powerless, nothing. They were wrong. I became the girl who healed the broken, who reclaimed a stolen throne, who changed a kingdom through compassion instead of cruelty. I became a queen. But more than that, I became myself. Fully, completely, without apology. And that, I've learned, is the greatest power of all. The world ended for me on my 9th birthday. But today, it's more alive than ever. And I'm just getting started. End.